Some understandings of seraphims and the cherubims at need now. When I went on to the cherubims and the seraphims, these two orders of spirits seemed to be having little or no trouble. They seemed to have found balance with one another, and to have found many powers in this alliance. They have already a highly developed power to survive, and to make living an artistically creative and entertaining event. The cherubims and the seraphims have a lot of lost will on earth that needs to heal now. Their experience on earth has systematically destroyed most of their joy for living. They have appeared to grow more and more dim and broken over time. They managed to hold on to so-called magic powers longer than most other spirits on earth, because they had more balance in the beginning. But they are very fragmented now, and their path of healing may seem very frightening to others who are not of their constitution. There is a vividness to everything they do that is even present in the denials that they have experienced. Guilt plagued me regarding these spirits. Even though they weren't having real problems when we first checked them, I could see that these spirits were going to have a very difficult time. These spirits had pleased us very much when they emerged, and it also had the guilt of feeling they might be favorites of ours, especially in view of what they had seen of the rainbow spirit's emergence. The cherubims and the seraphims thought they had really captivated our attention. They had a pride in themselves which they denied into their lost will was unbecoming. This pride believed they really were superior, but that it was not appropriate to let it be known. I contributed to this pride because I had feelings of loving them more than some of the others, and I did not think it was right to let this be known. The lost will of these spirits is incarnated as the indigenous people of Earth. In places where the indigenous people have been largely wiped out, and I am speaking here of Indians for the most part, the seraphims and the cherubims have often had to reincarnate into the forms of people who took over their land in order to continue their presence there. Dramatic reductions in Indian populations, including Mexico, Central and South America, has not allowed the essence of the cherubims and seraphims to retain enough power in the forms they had so much loved earlier, although some have kept their Indian forms. The ones incarnating into the forms of the ones who had conquered them did it partially because they had no other form available, and partially because they wanted to try to love their enemy, and to help their enemies to love and value them. They have always kept the desire for color and drama in their lifestyles, and have often ended up being outcast among the people they have sought to open to their ways. The cherubims and the seraphims have guilt which they have held in a state of denial that is the cause of their problems. They had guilt telling them it was not right to feel that they were favorites of mine, and they have punished themselves in measure with how favored they believed they were. They also had guilt telling them from the beginning that it was not right of them to have more of everything than other spirits had. These spirits also had the guilt of seeming to do better than those around them. Guilt told them it was wrong to think there was any reason for their good fortune, and that their day would come. They also feared that they could not keep themselves balanced if those around them were continually imbalancing themselves. They asked themselves the question, why are we doing so much better than the others? They felt they were doing well because they had superior understanding on living a manifested existence. Their unrecognized guilt told them this was a foolish pride. The feeling of doing better than the other spirits around them then gave the cherubims and the seraphims the feeling that they were riding for a fall, and they got it because they could not shake the feeling that was going to happen. They pushed these feelings away and thought it was a solution, but lost will brought its reflection to them nonetheless. These spirits need to understand that there are many reasons why they have lost many of their powers. Guilt told them it was not right to be what they were, and they were vulnerable to guilt, because somewhere here inside themselves they knew they had asked for more power than was really theirs. Self-acceptance is what they seek. Guilt and blame, pride and shame are all imbalances around the search for self-acceptance. These spirits feared that they were riding for a fall, and that sooner or later, no matter what they did, the great leveler would come along. The longer they lived in a state of grace, the more they feared that the reversal was being drawn closer to them. Guilt also told them that sooner or later they would be punished for their feeling of superiority. Fear was not a respected emotion in their orders of spirits, and so the fear was denied, and the feeling was surfaced as a kind of fatalistic belief system that in many instances eventually led them into a sacrificial approach toward the god or gods they have at a different time believed me to be. The more guilt gained inroads with the cherubims and the seraphims, the more they feared that I loved them initially because they had pleased me, and that they had continued to please me, or I would not love them. In not realizing how they were drawing punishing events into their lives, many feared that they had displeased me. They feared I was punishing them for daring to believe they were favored or superior. These spirits need to understand that I love them no matter what they do. The cherubims and the seraphims also feared they had committed a sin by denying heart the way they did at the emergence, and this led them into many sacrifices involving cutting out and or eating of hearts. I did not require or want these sacrifices, but their own unrecognized guilt thought that I did. Many times when they had thought that they were hearing me, it has been the voice of their own guilt instead. They need to accept having emerged to balance the polarity of male and female before they can accept manifested heart. This is the same thing that I did, and it is right for them. They did not really deny heart in the beginning, and yet they feared that they did. I have not sent punishment to the seraphims or the cherubims, and they do not need to pay for sins because they have not committed any. I have no desire for them to engage in sacrifice of any kind, and I would like them to realize that guilt is the reason for all their pain and sacrifice. I would really like the cherubims and seraphims to hear me this time and accept my help. It has been very hard for me to help them in the past because they, like many others, denied the feelings I have been discussing here and would not allow me to address the problem. Until the real feelings are accepted, real healing cannot be brought. These spirits also have another belief that needs to move now, the belief that suffering increases spiritual strength. In fact, suffering increases their lost will. While some may appear to gain strength this way, the denials involved have increased fragmentation here until some of the lost will of the cherubims and seraphims has become very broken and vacant-looking and is no longer moving will. The loss of vibratory power here is another reason for loss of power. Some believe that denial makes them strong because it compresses their vibration until they feel rock hard. They have equated this with strength. Others realize that denial reduces the ability to feel, and they have equated feelings with weakness. My own unrecognized guilt also gave these spirits more power than they were really ready to handle when they emerged. Guilt was the reason the mother gave these spirits so many of her powers. She felt she was not using them as well as these spirits would be able to. I had guilt involved here also because I had not yet realized that I was pushing more light and power onto the manifested spirits than they could actually handle in an effort to make sure that I wasn't shortcoming them to preserve my position as God. My fear and guilt about feeling attached to the role of being God was actually creating a reflection for me that was able to give me much more of a challenge for my position than I would have had otherwise. And yet I did not for a long time realize how my own fear that I should not be God was creating a reflection that seemed to show me that I should not be God. There were many very powerful cherubims and seraphims in the beginning that lived for a long time on earth as wizards and magicians and made me feel that I might need to step aside in favor of them. Some of them even acknowledged that they would like to take my job. I have now balanced this in myself, but initially these spirits received a large amount of essence from me that they should not have had, and I have had to take it back as part of the healing process here. This removal of essence from the cherubims and seraphims has also contributed to their loss of power over time. I have also been helping the Mother of Everything and the Father of Manifestation to reclaim essence that they gave out wrongly. Many of the powerful cherubims and seraphims had a fear of power, and a fear of their power, and a fear that they might misuse power. These fears were largely because they had more power than was right for them to have, and they were not comfortable with it. Their fears around power caused them to try to control it rather than let it flow naturally. Judgments against power and blockage in their will, combined with the denial of these patterns, caught them in an ever-increasing dogma and increasingly more rigid ceremonies that actually decreased their power further. Their intent here was to make sure that they used their powers in a safe and balanced way, but without clearing the underlying fears and confusions. This approach was destined to failure. The form of power must align with the essence of it. Healing here needs the release of old beliefs around power and the role of power on earth. It is time for many old beliefs to be released, and for ceremonies to be given new forms. Healing here and restoration of lost power is going to have to come from clearance of denials that have been held for a long time. I have taken back powers that should not have been given out, but there are still many powers that these spirits can rightfully have, if they have acceptance now for the role of their own wills must play in magnetizing these powers to them and in directing them. The cherubims and seraphims must desire to have these powers again if they want to regain them, and they must also not try to control powers they do not understand by putting limits on the people who have these powers. Alignment of spirit and will automatically directs power righteously. The form that ceremonies must take in the future is the form that is appropriate to the moment and the situation. Clearance in the will allow this to be felt. Superstition has to be looked at and understood for what it is. Many cherubims and seraphims are going to try to insist that they still have plenty of power and do not want this advice. But I also know that there are many who can understand what I am saying now, and who can see that I am saying this from love. The fear that loss of power may have been the result of impurity in the use of or misuse of power needs to be healed. Many cherubims and seraphims have given death and guilt the power to annihilate them because they have felt they were wrong to be what they were, and wrong to have greatness, strength, abundance, beauty, and power. Understanding here is that abuse and misuse of power are not possible when the ones involved are of good intent. Self-forgiveness is needed here, along with the understanding that they must allow themselves room to learn. Often they have cut others a wide margin for error and have been very hard on themselves. They have said that this was a tolerant and brave way, but lost will here is holding a rage and a fury about the treatment as received. When this rage and fury have tried to move, it has been in a denied state, and the cherubims and seraphims have not recognized the movement as their own denied emotions. They have thought I sent this upon them as punishment for having displeased me, when in fact it was their own denied will essence, trying to get them to recognize what they had been denying. Usually these spirits have reacted by believing that they must punish themselves even more for having displeased me. The punishment involved pain that they thought they had to bear bravely. Bearing it bravely meant denying their will's response to the treatment they were giving themselves, and this increased their lost will. Increasing lost will increased essence in a state of denial that their guilt was directing against them. The devastating natural disasters that cherubims and seraphims have experienced have been their own denied will essence, sent into the earth by those who believed that this was the best place to put it. It has come back on these spirits because of their own will essence and must be accepted and healed. It cannot be gotten rid of. The cherubims and the seraphims have to accept the emotions that they have rejected and denied in the past and allow them to move on. They have a power to move the earth that can be used in a positive manner, and this power is needed now. Judgments that they were wrong to manipulate nature in the past needed to be released now, along with the understanding that manipulate was the word the judgment used. Manipulation was not what was happening here, but unclear and denied emotion in the will was making the use of power by these spirits take on forms that seemed wrong. Healing the denied will bring the balance of form. Acceptance of how they really feel will allow them to use their powers in ways in which they need to be used right now. Guilt must move back, however, so that it does not draw punishment to the ones who have power or the use their powers. To move back, it must be recognized for what it is. Guilt must be replaced with self-acceptance. When guilt has been involved in making spirits feel that they were wrong to have the powers they have had, and wrong to use them in the ways they wanted to use them, guilt has drawn punishment to those spirits. The belief that it is evil and selfish to use power to gain the results you want to have is a judgment held in place by fear of being unloving and by guilt. This belief needs release now. This judgment has put quite a lot of power into a state of denial, where it has acted according to the instructions the judgments have given to it. This power has to be recovered, and the ones needing to recover it must do it in secret, because the ones who have this power wrongly have evil intent and selfish motive, and do not want to give it back. This power can be recovered if you have understanding of how to do it. You will be given these understandings as we go along. For now, implementing what you already have been told will be ready for your next step. Not only do the cherubims and the seraphims need to realize that nature has come down to them because of their own misunderstanding, but other people have attacked them for the same reason. There is no way another can attack you unless you do not love yourself. Guilt and denial have empowered these attacks. Guilt is not a loving presence. Guilt has said a price must be paid. Guilt has told them they have to give respect to others, whether they deserve it or not. Guilt has told them they should not have sex unless they have readiness to pay for it by having lots of children. People who have been misled by guilt have to forgive themselves for having the misunderstanding that made them vulnerable to guilt, because they were seeking love. Love must be found now instead of guilt. Sin is a matter of intent. If intent is to be loving, then sin is not involved. Some understandings on the karma of the rainbow spirits. We found the rainbow spirits in a state of disarray similar to the angels. They had mixed themselves together, but instead of being mostly white light mixed together and remaining mostly white light, they had colors which had mixed together. The rainbow spirits had many new colors, and some of them looked good. Most of them look like an artist's palette after someone had smushed all the colors together until they have a darkness that does not allow the recognition of anything. We had to go order by order, but I am going to give the information all at once since they all told us the same thing. The rainbow spirits had been trying to take in white light from the angels. They had also been trying to mix themselves together to get all the colors and make themselves into white light spirits. Their efforts were having the opposite effect. The more they tried to make white light, the darker they got. We did not understand why. I have tried everything to straighten this out, and yet the auras of the rainbow spirits have, with few exceptions, continued to look like they were badly bruised. Healing needs to know why now. The rainbow spirits had a lack of self-acceptance that was motivating them. No matter how they tried to make their light be white light, they lost light instead. They could not take in the light and hold it because the light is love, and they did not know love themselves. They hated themselves in many ways, and they wanted to blame me for not emerging them correctly. They all told us that they had not been parented right, and they had all been shortchanged at their emergence. If you had given us what we should have had, we would have all been white like the spirits who get so much of your time and attention. Our home would be there also if you loved us the way you love them. Instead, our home are these little balls of light out here in the darkness, as though we are outcast children, bedded down in separate part of the house from the others. We feared that we had acted wrongly toward the rainbow spirits, and we did not know it was guilt on our part that was allowing them to reflect this to us. At the time, we thought they were only confirming the uncertainty we'd had around their emergence, and it looked like they might be right. We gave them then the same input they needed now, but then we had guilt that had not been recognized, and our fear around this held back the rainbow spirit's ability to receive us. We told them they needed to accept themselves for what they were, and that we loved them for what they were. You have no idea how we marveled at you when we looked at the rainbow you made when you first emerged. We thought it was the most beautiful addition to creation that could have been made, we were told them. Lucifer made us feel like you had given us the position of a carpet that everyone walked on to and from the Godhead. We suspect he is right because you have passed over us and not stopped to give us the attention we need and want, they answered. We had a guilty vulnerability to the words here, but we did not feel that Lucifer was right, because we knew that we loved them too much to feel that they were only something to pass over. I could not answer them right away, because there was a voice in me saying, maybe that is what they are. If you want them to accept themselves for what they are, don't tell them that they are more than they are, because you then are not accepting them for what they are. Do not downgrade the carpet. Everything in creation has its place. I knew that they had given us passage somehow, and I did not know what that meant. When I did answer the rainbow spirits, they had distrust for my answer, because they felt I had taken too long to come up with it. I told them then what I am telling them now. You have specialties. You have aspects of my light that all need to be developed now. The white light spirits have the overview, and you are specialists who can focus into areas of my light and develop everything that is there. The rainbow spirits had suspicion for this, as though they were going to do piecework for the Godhead. I thought you had chosen this, I told them then. We found ourselves to be colors. We did not know what it meant. But now that we have seen what else there is, we want more than what we have. We do not want to be second-class citizens and have to feel like others see more and know more than we do. We want to feel like we can know everything we want to know. I now know that the rainbow spirits had everything they needed, but then I was not so sure. Then I had a fear that I desired to enjoy the color lights more than they did, and that I had perhaps forced them into splits in the light that they did not want to have. I called for Hart to come in now and help me on this. Hart appeared instantly before us all and said that he was ready to receive any and all spirits who wanted to come to him now, and that he would give them the love they needed so that they could receive the light they wanted to have. The rainbow spirits did not have the response to Hart that we thought they were going to have. We thought they had been asking us to make things right with them, the way they wanted to have them, and that Hart was now offering to do this by bringing his presence to them, since it had been focused in the Godhead at the time of their emergence. The rainbow spirits reacted with a distrust of Hart. They had the suspicion that he was being condescending toward them, and in some subtle way, offering to give them something, and then saying they could not have it because they could not receive it. The rainbow spirits feared they could not increase their white light, because they had not succeeded in their earlier attempts to receive it from the angels. They didn't like the way they felt around Heart, because Heart was ready to love them, and they were not ready to love themselves. The rainbow spirits had many feelings that needed to move in them before they could open to receive Heart's love. The rainbow spirits had guilt about what they had emerged that was not letting them know that it was all right. They feared they had responded to something in us that was not acceptable even to us, because we had gotten in a fight about it right in the middle of emerging them. They felt many feelings they feared they could not bring forward to us, because we had touched these feelings during our fight, and had decided that denying these feelings was the only way we could preserve our love for one another. They wanted to get out of their guilt by blaming others. Later I am going to bring forward all of the feelings that have been held for so long in a state of denial. But first, healing work needs to be done with the feelings that were most present then, and are still affecting the spirits who have held the misunderstandings around these feelings for so long. The rainbow spirits have continued to feel that they got shortchanged, and this has caused them to act out in ways that look to others like they have a chip on their shoulder. They also have lost will, which is wanting to take what they believe they have not been given. The desire to take has gone all the way from making others feel guilty enough to give them more than they want to give them, to conning others, to being shrewd in ways that have made others feel cheated, on into outright thievery and crookedness. The rainbow spirits have always had a flair for making others feel guilty. They have so much guilt themselves it is easy for them to know how guilt works on others. The rainbow spirits have many guilts that need to move out now, and I would like to give some of their most prevalent patterns. Many times in the past when I have tried to give the rainbow spirits this information, they have feared receiving it because they thought it meant that I did not love them. The feelings underneath the guilt must move, because the feelings must move the guilt out. Guilt has no consciousness to move out on its own. If feelings that have not been vibrating, because guilt has held them down, begin vibrating because the person now has acceptance for the feelings, the space guilt occupied is then filled by these feelings, and guilt has to leave. The guilt that needs to move out now are mostly guilts around feeling the rainbow spirit have had, so discussing the guilt and feelings together is the best way to give these understanding. The rainbow spirit have felt jealousy of spirits they perceived having less trouble than they have had, and yet they have rarely been able to understand what others have really experienced, because they have been so caught up in their own problems. The rainbow spirits have fear now that they have no home on earth, and if they are going to have a home on earth, they will have to fight for it or experience it being reluctantly given. Even when they have given to one another, there has often been reluctance to do so, because of lost will's fear that there might not be anything more, so that they must hold on to what they have. They have tried to take care of what they have and have not seen others as having the same appreciation for things that they have. They have been accused of hoarding for this reason. The rainbow spirits have confusion in their orders about position and age, and also need to be mentioned now. They had emergence in a progression of colors, and they had two lines of spirits emerge. The first line went down through the rainbow, and had more white light with it than gold light. The second line came back up through the rainbow and had more gold light than white light. The reason for this is that the rainbow spirits emerged through spirit polarity first, and then their will polarity. They emerged polarized similarly to the seraphims and the cherubims, except that the rainbow spirits never accepted their will polarity as much as the seraphims accepted the cherubims. This is because this was not as much acceptance for the feelings around their emergence as there had been in earlier emergences. The rainbow spirits had more guilt at emergence than the other spirits did, and they have suffered with it ever since. When we got to the rainbow spirits, they had already begun fighting among themselves about who had the best position. They felt left out of the Godhead and claimed they did not like the homes we had made for them. They had never gone to these homes to find out if they liked them or not. They told us when we visited them at this time that the Godhead was the best home and they wanted to live there. We loved the planets we had opened for them and wondered why they had never gone there to find out what we had created there. We had made each planet different, but they all had certain things in common. Each planet had an atmosphere that would allow the spirits to vibrate themselves, and each had light that would nourish the spirits in ways that they needed and liked best. Some were more opalescent and pastel, while others were more vivid and stable. Some had greater natures than others, some had more animals than others. but all had the feelings of the spirits themselves. We could not get the rainbow spirits to believe us that their homes were just as wonderful in their own way as the homes of the angels, and that they needed homes that were different from the angels in order to fulfill themselves and be happy. The lost will of the rainbow spirits have not yet accepted their right place as the place they would like to be. They have been wandering ever since they emerged. They have wandered the inner planes and the outer ones. They have mastered astral travel, and the ones that have not remained on Earth have mastered space travel. The rainbow spirits came to Earth long ago in large numbers, and most of them left after a while, just as they had left every other place they had gone. The rainbow spirits left many behind when they departed, because many had lost the power to leave. Most of the rainbow spirits that were left behind were from the will polarity. Their magnetic nature had gotten too enmeshed in the magnetic energy field of Earth for them to be able to leave with the others. There was a great sadness at the departure on the part of the ones left behind. They felt they were being abandoned in a place that was not right for them. They felt guilt for having the magnetic energy that would not leave with the rest. Now the spirits that have been gone for so long have begun to spend time near Earth again. Many have tried to contact them. They have come for the ones that they left behind. But they have been gone for so long that most of the rainbow spirits that have given up on the promise these spirits made so long ago to come back and get them when they found their true home. The rainbow spirits that have been left for so long on Earth have tried to tell themselves that it is not right to hope for a better life than the one that they have right here on Earth, but they could not help but hope for it anyway. Besides patterns of wandering as gypsies, circus and carnival people, wandering minstrels and magicians, much of the lost will of the rainbow spirits on Earth have been the Jewish people. They have had an old wish to be chosen, to be lifted out of there and taken home to Zion. Their guilt about this has caused them to be punished over and over in very unloving ways. The Jewish people have made others feel that Jews cannot accept other ways of life because they have a better one. They have covered their fear of inferiority with an air of superiority, and the lack of self-acceptance involved in this whole rainbow spirit pattern has drawn punishment which has dragged them down into some of the lowest realities available on Earth. They have given themselves into the name of love, but it has been guilt they have given themselves to. What guilt does to its victim is not a loving thing to feel or a pretty thing to see. There is a huge backlog of emotion that needs to move around the experiences of many of the rainbow spirits on Earth. The rainbow spirits have never found a land that really feels like it belongs to them because Earth is not their planet, and they have never accepted their true home. They have always fought among themselves about who the best position in relationship to me. The rainbow spirits have had pride, competition, and lack of self-acceptance standing in their way. They all had bright and beautiful colors when they emerged, but they did not stay that way for long. Almost immediately they began to try to look like something other than what they were. Their lack of self-acceptance created a reality around them that did not accept them. Spirits face their own reflection whether they recognize it or not. Spirits do not accept themselves will manifest surroundings that do not accept them either. The Jews have seen themselves as victims because the spirits whose denials they have held did not want to take responsibility for themselves. From the beginning, the rainbow spirits wanted to blame God for their troubles, and later they extended this blame to the angels for not parenting them well enough in God's absence. As time went by, the rainbow spirits have blamed any who have not given them what they wanted to have. There are some rainbow spirits who have incarnated in other patterns now, but in the past many rainbow spirits and many of their lives within the Jewish culture. This has to be understood to understand the karma they face whether they are presently incarnated in a Jewish form or not. They have all dreamed for so long of a wonderful home for themselves as not on Earth. I'm not asking them to give up this dream now, but I would like them to give up the guilt that has said either they will never get there or they must pay a terrible price to get there. I would also like them to stop believing they must die to leave Earth. The rainbow spirits need to understand that it is not wrong that they have been lost for so long. They had too many confusions to know what home was for them until they had a lot of experience to teach them. They also need to understand that it was not wrong to have emerged as they did. The rainbow spirits need to understand that the kind of orgasms that call them forth are not wrong just because they were not like the ones that had happened before. They also need to understand that the Father of Manifestation is a rightful part of creation, and that I was only having sex in my body with my spirit present when they emerged. I did not fully recognize manifested form as a part of myself then, but now I do. All the conditioning they have received around this has to move now. They have been considered too materialistic because guilt has caused their love for form to materialize in a state of denial. Their sex lives have not taken the form they would like them to have either, because their guilt told them that the form they responded to was wrong. Guilt and old denied emotions need to move here, and the light of the Spirit needs to come in as it had never done before. The rainbow spirits have a sexual guilt that is deeply buried in religious arguments that even include rules about what positions are appropriate for lovemaking. Their sexual guilt is all related to what is going on with us when they emerged. Having had so much guilt about what they enjoyed the most, they have tried to deny it in themselves in an effort not to repeat what they view as their original sin. A lusty interest in sex is not wrong if you have love present for it. The guilt that they have had about heart has never really let the rainbow spirits believe that love and sex can really go together. After all, where was heart when they emerged? Moses reflected a lot on their guilt to them, and he gave the Jews many more laws than are listed in the modern Bible. I would especially like to see an end to circumcision, which was really not so much a matter of health as it was a question of guilt, making the rainbow spirits feel they needed to do something to reduce their sensitivity, and therefore their interest in sex. Circumcision and health problems in the genitals are both symptoms of the same kind of guilt. Just because we did not understand everything that happened when creation emerged does not mean that understanding cannot come later. Lack of understanding does not mean that what happened was wrong. At the time of the emergence of the rainbow spirits, we had to go on our own instincts. Our instincts turned out to be right, but then we did not know if they were right or wrong. We have learned since that if we feel like doing something, it will not be wrong, even if the lesson we learn is a bitter one. The more we learn, the less bitter the lessons have to be. We had plenty of feelings in denial when we emerged the rainbow spirits, and they are hard feelings to heal now, but not impossible. Old feelings just need to move here so they can receive new understanding. Love really was present here in all the feeling we had. We just did not realize because we were afraid to trust ourselves in some areas. Lost Will now needs to know that it is not going to be possible to give everything it needs to know right now in this book. If Lost Will gets healing moving with what has been given here, Lost Will get more when it needs it. The will polarity of the rainbow spirits is not wrong to feel so much distrust of its spirit polarity. The will polarity has been getting denied almost from the very beginning. As the rainbow spirits were emerging, the lost will was already increasing because of denials in the spirit polarity. The line of rainbow spirits that had more white light thought they had more favored by me. This line of rainbow spirits has more sexual guilt than the will polarity, because there was less alignment around will leading us into manifestation than there was around spirit leading us back home. The spirit polarity of the rainbow spirit tried to say that they had not emerged first. They had insistence for a long time that they had actually emerged in the gentle orgasms. When we asked the rainbow spirits to go to their place of emergence, the spirit polarity of the rainbow spirit tried to lump together in the place they judged to be best. They all tried to go to the place where the purple spirits had emerged. They all believed that this was the best spot. The rainbow spirits saw this place of emergence as the place that was closest to me and therefore the best position to have. They even pushed and shoved one another trying to get in the line up there. They had no desire to help one another get into place because they could not accept the places they had. They have no more self-acceptance in their lost will now than they had then. They have to go to their wills now and help them to move these old feelings. The rainbow spirits have felt like crowding is part of life. They have also not liked letting anyone else get a position they think is better than their own. It is now time to realize that all the colors have the love of God in them if the spirits can accept themselves enough to let that light pour in. I want to give some additional understanding now on how the rainbow spirits lost so much of their color. Lucifer told the rainbow spirits that they had emerged too late to get the full spectrum of light, and that they were going to have to be happy with what they did get. Lucifer also told the rainbow spirits that the angels got preferential treatment in the Godhead that the rainbow spirits did not even know about. He told them that there was more light there than they had ever seen. He also told them that I had no love for the way they had emerged, and that I thought they were pushy and emerged too fast. He told them that the mother did not like it that there were so many of them, and that she had not wanted to take care of them from the very beginning because it would interfere with her sex life. The rainbow spirits have fear and guilt telling them that God wanted them to slow down, hold back, and reduce their numbers. They all thought I would favor the ones that had the most light, and I would not eliminate them. The scramble for position not only included trying to have their place of emergence look like it was the closest to me, but their desire to take in more light became involved now also. The ones who had taken in the most light thought they had the best chance to be favored by me. The purples and blues thought they had emerged closer to me than the rest of the colors, and they believed this made them superior. The purples and blues who had emerged with white light came to feel that they were the oldest, wisest, and best of all the rainbow spirits, because they had emerged first, and they were therefore the most favored. Their wills, who had the gold light, did not like it that they were supposed to take a back seat to them. When the purples and blues would not give way to any of the other colors, they all began jockeying for position around the green spirits. It may help to think of the rainbow spirits as the chakras of my body. When Heart gave up on getting the rainbow spirit to receive him and went back to the angels, the rainbow spirits took this to mean that they had a problem taking light in, and that their own heart was not good enough to receive the heart of God. They told their own green heart spirits to move back because they had not had what it took to let the heart of God remain present with them, like he did with the heart angels. They also told their heart spirits that they all had to receive heart through them, and so Heart of the rainbow spirits had let them all down. This was a way for all the other colors to say that green was the problem, so that they did not have to face their own fears about themselves. The yellow spirits tried to crowd into green's place then. Yellow said that green might not be necessary at all, since green could be made on the spot if yellow was allowed to get next to blue. Orange did not like this because orange felt it would be eliminated next if red said it was going to move in next to yellow. Orange tried to protect itself by turning on red and saying that red had caused the fight that God had during their emergence. Orange told red it was too hot, and that the red spirit should get back because they caused more passion and more fighting in an already troublesome situation. Orange told red it wasn't acceptable because it had already shown what kind of energy it had. Orange secretly thought purple would get eliminated if red went. The blue spirits liked orange for this because blue began to feel that it was a real color and purple was not. Blue then claimed it was really the right color to be heading up all the others. The blue spirits who had white light felt they had come out on top without even having to try. They took this to mean that they had an innate superiority that was not arguable. These spirits had more confidence in themselves than any other order of rainbow spirits. These spirits have never incarnated as Jewish people. They have always incarnated in whatever form they felt was the favored form in the society in which they chose to live. The blue spirits who have gold have often felt magnetized to incarnate near their blue spirit polarities, but they have not fared as well as the blue whites, because they have never believed themselves to be fully worthy of the position that their spirits have sought. The entire second line of rainbow spirits, who had more gold than the first line, had originally emerged with brighter colors than the first line, but began to lose them when the first line said that they were better, because they were more pastel like the angels. The second line defended itself by attacking the angels. The will polarity of the rainbow spirits accused the angels of being wispy and having no real substance. The will polarity of the rainbow spirits also had more defined form. When forms seemed to come under attack, they gave the retort that no one else had the guts to define themselves. They said that everyone else liked to vacillate, change, and mix together because they were all afraid of themselves. They said that lack of substance and definition was a weakness and not a virtue. The mother liked the attitude of the will of the rainbow spirits because she didn't like getting blamed for everything. Here were finally some will spirits who were not apologizing and feeling guilty about themselves like the fourth order of angels had done. She was so happy to see some will present speaking her own point of view and having some spunk about it, and she did not let herself see how defensive they were really being to cover their fear of being the least preferred of the spirits. The will polarity of the rainbow spirits have been judged against from the very beginning for having taken after the mother. All the spirits thought that I favored the ones who took after me, and that I was in the power position in creation. They had all gotten the impression that I did not love the mother as much as I loved the children who took after me. Therefore there was fear that children who took after the mother were the least favored by me, even by the mother. When the mothers spoke out in favor of will presence, the spirits who took after me had some fear that they were rejected by the mother. Defense on each side began to emerge as a growing tendency to deny the importance of the other side. By the time this reached the bottom of the line, which was judged to be the will polarity of the rainbow spirits in the colors of yellow, orange, and red, these spirits had taken in so much judgment and denial, and had so much guilt about themselves that they began to look quite dark and smudged in an unpleasant way. I had preference for all the colors to accept themselves and glowing brightly the way they had done when they first emerged, but it seemed there was nothing I could do here. The colors who had judged themselves to be superior to the others were all clumping together to try to make sure there was not room for other colors to push their way in. They did not want to accept even one little spirit because they were all afraid that even one would try to make room for the rest of his kind. The red spirits, who were the most frightened that I might eliminate them if I really decided they were too many rainbow spirits, had made pacts with one another to stick together for their mutual defense and survival, even if they had to go to the extremes of pushing others out of the way. Rather than have a few red survive by hiding in with the purples, red decided they would rather displace all the purples if they could. They wanted to stick together because they felt the most threatened. The red spirits later felt guilty that they had behaved this way in front of me, but they were very afraid they would not survive unless they fought for their lives. The red spirits were not wrong in feeling that they had to fight for their lives because they were being given the most denial. Some have tried to make alliances with purple by pointing out that without red, purple does not exist. Orange spirits of the will polarity were the next in line for receiving denials in the rainbow spirits' pecking order. They got blamed for being more sexually passionate than was considered to be attractive or acceptable to spirit. They had throats and tongues, and they were blamed for being too involved in oral and sexual appetites. The rest of the spirits talked about red and orange as though they were not part of the rest of the group. These two colors got blamed for most of the things that they are judged against on earth in the nature of man. They were said to be the warring by nature, clannish, pushy, passionate, sensual, sexually intense, orally insatiable, and emotionally extreme. Rage is the most denied emotion in these orders, and it is also the source of their greatest power. These spirits need to give themselves acceptance now and bring their denied essence within the light of God. They have had my love for longer than they know, but they have had a rough beginning because I feared I didn't know how to give them the light that they needed. They have struggled to survive on their own for a long time, and I wanted them to receive the help they need now. They have great power to survive, to be physically vital, and to express creativity if they have enough self-acceptance to be able to open and receive the light they need. Expressing the feelings they felt then, when they were so judged against, is an important part of their healing, so that they can open to the light they need. The other colors argued their point, but did not take as many actions as the more threatened oranges and red did. No matter how they were judged against by the other colors, each color had reason to believe within themselves that they were the best and the most important. The indigo spirits had not said much at all during any of this, and they felt they were superior because of their composure and inner strength. The blue spirits have always believed they are the greatest expressionists there are. The indigo spirits have always quietly dismissed the self-importance of blue, because they believe blue is nothing without them to supply the inner model for their outer performance. The purple spirits have always maintained that they are the best because they receive inspiration directly from me, and the rest of the colors just implement their instructions. Purple whites always believed that they received more of my personal attention than any of the others, but knowing they had red in them has made them wonder how I manifest spirit this way if I do not like red. Everyone needs to know that I love red. I just did not know how to handle the feelings I first had when I had to trust will and body to guide me into manifestation, when I was so used to being the guide myself. I now know that red and orange need to move their rage over being denied acceptance for the right place for so long. Red and orange are not wrong to have the great intensity they have, and it is necessary that they have it. They have the strength necessary to anchor me in manifestation, hold me there, and allow me to survive. Red has the power to hold open the space needed to survive, and orange has the power to creatively fill that space with what is needed to survive there. These spirits only become warring when their survival is threatened. They have always felt that if they have to attack the ones threatening the survival of others, they will do it. They need to understand, though, how important self-acceptance is being able to live without having others attack them. Yellow was not wrong in having the merriment of sunshine in its emergence pattern. I have finally gotten these spirits to listen to me, but their lost will still needs to understand that they are the heart of the mother. Some of what yellow felt when it wanted to display green was that they were a heart also, and they were not being recognized for it. The heart of the mother is the intuitional center that feels what balanced action for the mother is. Green is the heart of all and must receive from both the mother and the father. Green has trouble maintaining its color if the other spirits do not maintain their colors. Green is meant to balance everything from all the colors and give it the manifestation needed. The rainbow spirits need to discover their own heart by balancing the spirit and the will polarity. There's a lot of healing to do first because colors have now become muddy and denied for so long. Healing needs to happen now, rather than putting it off in favor of guilt punishing the rainbow spirits anymore for failing to see themselves as worthy enough in the sight of God just for being who they are. If the rainbow spirits are now ready to heal and begin manifesting their gifts instead of their denials, they have gifts of great beauty to give. Having gone down so far, many of the rainbow spirits envision healing as finally coming out on top. This would not be balance either. Any swing of the pendulum always swings back again until balance is found. The swing upward has increased guilt, and the swing down has increased blame. Neither has worked out so far. The balance of spirit and will is important now because neither one can live without the other, and harmony can never be found unless they balance in the heart. I have gone the whole road of imbalance with the will, and for those who would like my help, I have much more information to give. What I am giving now is what can be given in this first book on original cause. At the time of the emergence of the rainbow spirits, I gave them what light I could, and they received what light they could accept. There needs to be acceptance for this now. Guilt and blame are not necessary, but these must be moved in the lost will before healing balance can be found. Fear and terror lie underneath guilt, and anger and rage lie underneath blame. Getting guilt and blame to move means accepting the emotions because denial made space for their presence. Because the rainbow spirits felt so guilty, they were looking for a way to blame others to get out from under the feeling of guilt. It has not worked because blame and guilt are not really different from one another. When guilt has gone as far as it can go in one direction, it begins to shift back into another. The one receiving this presence perceives it as guilt, and the one pushing it away perceives its form as blame, but the guilt itself has not changed. The rainbow spirits feared that I blamed them for the things I have been discussing here, and when they could no longer tolerate the feeling, they sought to shift it back by blaming me. The denial present did not allow me to address the core of the problem here with the rainbow spirits either. I could not even get the rainbow spirits to let me straighten out their mixed-up colors. Although they insisted that their colors were mixed the way they wanted them to be, they really feared that they might be found to be colors. I did not favor if they were allowed me to straighten them out. They didn't even want to admit to the fear in case I might turn out to be right. I found that Lucifer had spoken to the fears of all the spirits in ways that had made them afraid to speak of them again, because he had been able to make spirits feel their fears were right. While I had been trying to help the rainbow spirits straighten out their misunderstanding, the Father of Manifestation had been trying to help them with problems they were having maintaining their forms. He had not had any more success than I had. The Mother had been trying to get the rainbow spirits to accept their will as part of themselves, and she had even less luck than I had had. The rainbow spirits all had fear that they had merged wrong, and they had blamed their will for having moved at the wrong time. The spirit polarity would not accept the will polarity, because then they would have to take responsibility for the movement of their wills. The spirit polarity felt guilty that they had come forth in response to feelings that I had not seemed to accept, and they felt that blaming their wills made me look more acceptable to me. No matter how we tried to allay their fears and straighten out their misunderstanding, we could not do it then. The rainbow spirits, like most of the other spirits, were going to have more experience before they would be able to see that they had misinterpreted my intent. I had loving intent, whether I understood everything I was doing at first or not. That rainbow spirits had loving intent, and we all had guilt. At that time, we did not realize that guilt was an unloving thing to have. We did not know what was going to happen as a result of the presence of guilt. We had many problems manifesting the creation, and we had many problems to heal now, but they are healable if there are intent to heal them. Forgiveness is a very important part of this healing, because it is not possible to go back and change what has already happened, except by changing the way we feel about it. The will cannot be pressured to forgive before it is really ready, because the forgiveness could not be real. But intent to reach forgiveness can allow intense old emotions to move without continuing old hostilities. The will has to go through all of its pain and then forgive everything. Judging the will, no matter how subtly, for how long it takes to do this, is not giving it the acceptance it needs. Spirit has to respond to the will with the feeling it has also. Spirit has responsibility for causing the will's response, and the spirit has to let the will know how it feels about the will's response to it. You have to understand, it is not a one-way street to balance this. The spirit cannot just preach to the will, and the will cannot just rave on without spirit helping will to understand itself. Lucifer has no intent to be loving or to help the will understand itself. Hearing the will's response when it has blame for the spirit is not an easy thing to do, but the will must be accepted for how it feels now. The will has a valid case for blaming the spirit, but the will must move the blame and forgive the spirit for not knowing what effect denial was going to have on the will. You have to understand that behavior is not the issue here. Misunderstandings are. In other words, there is no reason to forgive yourself for having sexual orgasm that was the greatest thrill of your life. It is important to forgive yourself for judging that how you achieved this was not acceptable in the sight of God. This single judgment has done more to reduce the presence of the light on earth than any other single thing that has ever happened there. I understand how spiritual leaders have thought that having sexual relationship has increased the darkness on earth, but they have confused the form and the essence and mistakenly judged the forms. It is not the act of having sexual relationships that has increased the presence of death on earth. It is the act of having sexual relationships in the presence of denial that has increased the presence of death on earth. Sex has to be accepted now for what it is meant to be, an act of love that increases the presence of the light. When you have no guilt involved, you have no possibility of having a child unless you want to have one. Do not assume that you have no further need for birth control once you have received this understanding. You have guilt, or you would not ever even think that it was possible to have an unwanted child. Pretending that every child that comes is wanted is not convincing evidence that you do not have guilt either. That need release now. I want to give some examples of how some people have manifested sexual guilt in their lives. The examples I'm going to use are groups of people that are known in the United States because they have received media coverage. The media coverage has made them well known enough to be examples from which many can learn. Before I discuss them, I would like to give a list of some judgments that need to be given up now. I forgive myself for having believed for so long that blank is the preface for all of these judgments. I have been favored by God over others, or God has favored others over me. I have more light than I should have, or I have less light than I should have. I was given or took more than I should have, or I was given or took less than I should have. I emerged in the wrong place, either too soon or too late. I have no way to heal this now. I have too little essence left to gather myself together again. I have no guidance to help me through this. I have been forsaken by God just like everyone else on earth. I have no recourse because I have only myself to blame, or others are to blame and they don't care about me. I hate having to feel pain because once my real pain starts, it never ends. I hate God for not letting me know what emergence was going to be like. I hate God for not parenting me in such a way that I could avoid the problems I am having now. I hate God for not being there when I need Him, or I hate myself because I'm the God that was not there for myself. I hate God for not making me listen to Him because I had so much imbalance that I became overwhelmed by it. I hate God for not making me understand what He was trying to teach me. I hate myself for not knowing how to live the way I want to live. I hate myself for not being somebody else that I could love better. I hate everyone else for giving me so little help. I had to let guilt tell me that it was not right to have the feelings I have. I had to let guilt tell me to sacrifice myself for everyone else. I had to let guilt tell me I was never good enough to have, get, be what I wanted. You have many more personal judgments, but I would like you to know that you all have these judgments in common on earth. Even if you think that you do not have these judgments, you have them in one form or another. There are many on earth who think that guilt is not a problem for them anymore, and it is largely for these people that I am going to give the examples I am now going to give, although everyone has something to learn here. Just as you may think that you have the understanding you need already, you must learn to understand what I am telling you in a new light. I have given many understandings many times, and they have not been understood, or I would not have to be given them again now. It is important to understand what judgment release really is, and I have given you the information you need if you can learn to apply it. I would like to mention the word release before I go on. Release to most people has meant letting go or getting free, and this is right. The manner in which this is done is all important. If you release yourself by getting rid of part of yourself, you have not released yourself at all. You have only gotten rid of something. Anything you get rid of will come back later, whether it is to change its form or not. What is yours and cannot be gotten rid of. You have responsibility for it, and no one else can take it in and handle it for you. Even Jesus did not die for your sins. He cannot do it for you. Drugs cannot do it for you. Affirmations cannot do it for you. Divorce cannot do it for you, and abortion cannot do it for you. Getting rid of the form of something that has caused you trouble in the past does not mean that your essence will not create it again. Sometimes you may not recognize the new forms this creation takes on at first, but sooner or later, if you have loving intent to learn, you will recognize the recurring patterns. The patterns are what you need to look at to recognize the underlying judgments. For example, if you have a long string of lovers and none of them give you the enjoyment you need to realize the problem is your own sexual guilt and not the patterns. If you have guilt, your partners will also have guilt. but they are not the cause of your problems. If you have one you can trust, though, you may be the mutual solution for one another. Anything you bring forward will trigger the complementary pattern in your partner if healing work is going to be possible there. If this does not happen, do not pursue the issues with that person, because you are facing denial in another that you have not recognized in yourself yet, and you will be blamed for everything. You have to realize that it is not right to go forth with emotional release just because you have read about it. You must feel that it is safe to do it in the place and form in which you are going to do it. Release is a matter of letting old patterns within move you and express outwardly as actions when they need to. This is not the same thing as getting rid of pattern by shoving it out, for this is what has created lost will in the first place. Lost will now must be healed by being taken back in by the one who pushed it out, and healed in such a way that lost will can change its outlook and increase its understanding. It is not possible to let lost will go on any more in the form it has taken outside of the spirits to whom it belongs. Most of the lost will has become destructively dark because it has been deprived of light for so long. Its desperation is because its survival is threatened. Light is necessary for life, although Lucifer told many it was not, and that they should not need it. He shamed many spirits into thinking they were like babies who refused to be weaned when they wanted to continue receiving my light instead of making their own. This also has to be forgiven now. Receiving light from me is not wrong, it is necessary. If I am not fully present when you open an orgasm, you do not take in light and you take in death. If you have some part of yourself that you do not accept and everything does, I am not fully present. Does this mean that you have to give up sex until you are fully healed? This would be ideal if you could do it, but as I've said, living is a question of balance. The denial involved in suppressing sexual energy would not promote healing any more than having sex in the presence of denial would. Because of this, there was a long time during which I felt uncertain about how healing would take place. I finally realized that intent makes a difference. Gaining understanding also helps. As long as most people believed that having sex was taking them to hell, they went ahead and helped themselves along their way. Now if people find out that it is all right to have sex in the presence of love, they will be able to start increasing the light. Getting alignment in the part of you that is still vibrating is a most important first step. Then reaching the layers of denial as they have readiness to unfold themselves to you is the next phase in healing. If you have intent to heal, you need to know that it is not wrong to go at the speed that feels right for you. If you have an urgent, driven feeling about the healing that you need to do, you need to go to that fear that lies underneath this. The urgency is not wrong. It is letting you know that you are terribly afraid for your own survival. If you are afraid for your survival, you have good reason to be. But giving the presence of the fear the recognition and acceptance that it needs, and allowing it movement will strengthen your ability to survive, which will in turn calm your fear. The fear is trying to say that you have not been responding to your needs enough to make the will feel you are able to survive. Urgency means you are now recognizing this, but driving yourself to heal will not allow the rest you need, and the will still be frightened that you are not sensitive to your needs. Urgency has a place, but it is not to gain control of you at the expense of everything else. On the other hand, if you are talking healing, but not getting down to business, you have fear also. You have to go to the fear and let it move. Guilt may be another reason. You may have so much guilt telling you your emotions are unacceptable, dangerous, too intense, or whatever your judgments are against them, that you may need to start by recognizing judgments and giving release here first. Some call this giving yourself permission. You will have to accompany this approach by feeling your fear of emotional expression.